Welcome to EDU 3339. This particular instructional video will deal with data and central tendency. So really what we're talking about is basically statistics. And you have to know that statistics is a branch of mathematics that is kind of like learning its own language. We're not going to delve too much into that, but there is certain terminology that you need to know. First of all, we need to know the process of doing statistics, that we teach our children to ask questions and that we can answer those questions by collecting data, so through questionnaires or surveys or gathering some sort of data. Then we collect our data and we analyze it, and we use specific types of things to analyze, like graphs. And by using these types of graphs, we can better see and understand the type of data we collect. And then it's important to be able to interpret the results and go back to our original question and answer that. So, how do we formulate the questions and have our students formulate questions? Well, first of all, they should be given opportunities to generate their own questions, such as, what's your favorite topping on pizza? And so you might have a survey in your class, or ways children get to So next we move to data collection. So basically we can collect data by categorical methods, so they're grouped by labels, or we can collect data in a numerical fashion that actually counts numbers. So you can look at the different types of data that we can collect here and how they might look. Then we must learn to analyze. And part of analyzing is just classifying, just making decisions about how to categorize things. So you might use graphic organizers in your classroom to help you to be able to help the children learn to analyze certain types of data. We also use graphical representations to analyze data. And so we teach our students different types of graphs, such as the bar graph, the line graph, the circle graph, pictograph, different things like that. Even stem and leaf plots, get familiar with those as well. However, what we really need to teach them, in addition to those, is how do you know what graph to use in representing certain data? And that can be a little more difficult. And so we are going to learn in this chapter how we can help students make those decisions. There can also be circle graphs, sometimes called pie charts. It's important to remember with circle graphs or pie charts that these are typically percentages and they're taken out of 100. Then there are line plots. There are histograms. We don't usually deal with those too much, but some grade levels might touch on those, as well as box plots. I don't remember doing either of those very much at all in elementary school. However, we do deal with stem and leaf plots. So it's important to understand how to read those. Basically, the stem represents the tens column and the ones represents the ones column. So it looks like on this particular stem and leaf plot that we have no numbers in the 30s or 40s. And we have one number of a 55. And then we have a 66, a 62, and a 66. And then we have a 77, 73, 74, 74, 74, 76, 76. So that's how it's read from the distribution. We also have line graphs. whether or not you do that. So data analysis, what we want to teach the students to do is to learn about the measures of central tendency and variability, and that means using mean, median, mode, and range. What we're trying to see is basically what numbers look like in compared to the average, or in compared to the one in the middle, or compared to the one that's used most often. So variability asks us to make some decisions, okay? Do we include on any outliers or extremes? For instance, let's say that you have phrase. So the variability, basically the ones that we're going to look at are the range and the mean absolute deviation. Now the range is basically the difference between the highest and the lowest data point, and it's related to the median. The mean absolute deviation is related to the mean, and it tells you how far away each of the numbers are from the mean. So you have to get the mean first, and then you look at that deviation from the mean. There is actually a video on this page that will show you exactly how to use this. This is a lesser used. So then we need to be able to help students analyze and interpret that. So once they put their information on a graph and they figured out the mean, the median, the range, the mode, and maybe even the mean absolute deviation, what do they do with that? We should teach them how to answer and ask questions about the mathematical ideas. We should teach them to think about the context of the situation and what can be learned from the data. So here are some examples for meaningful discussion about interpreting data. So what do the numbers tell us about our class? So maybe you did a survey about the class, about the pizza. What do the numbers tell us? Or about what method of transportation they use. How do the numbers in the graph compare to this one? So maybe you have the teacher next door to you and then your class, and you're going to compare those two. What's the difference between the most popular forms of pizza in each class? Does the data cluster anywhere? So are you seeing, let's say you went back to your spelling test data, do you see the data cluster around any certain grade? Because that's going to tell you about outliers. Is there anything the graph doesn't tell you? Maybe it doesn't tell you whether or not someone actually likes pizza. What new questions do you have? And what did the author really want us to know about this particular graph? So there are several videos that I supplied for you for this particular subject matter, because I think it's important for you to know how to make those graphs, and more importantly, how to know which graphs to use in what situation. So we have the pie charts or the circle graph, and then we have types of bar graphs over on the right. Then in the center and down at the bottom, on the left, we have mean, median, and mode for you to just refresh yourself on how to do that. And talking about an outlier down on the bottom right, what is an outlier? Now I'm going to tell you, don't worry about the standard deviation. We don't do that in elementary school at all. So just follow the short video that explains what an outlier is and how that helps you make decisions on what central tendency to use. So should I use mean, median, or mode when there are outliers in my data set? And then the center one talks about mean absolute deviation, what is it, and how it can be figured.